Hi. On rereading the blurb on the controller, somewhere it mentioned it was the user's responsibility to fit a fuse to protect the inputs. What's the saying? For want of a fuse, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the dum-de-dum, and all for want of a fuse. I'm using a 500 milliamp quick blow in an inline fuse holder, which should blow if there is a short. I considered using a 200 milliamp multi-fuse, but it would be hard to fault find as it self-repairs following power down. Any new piece of equipment, tool, or unfamiliar material to be worked has a learning curve. This is no exception. In the early days of understanding what is going wrong, it is so easy to get frustrated, but with whom or what? Whether it is called experience, knowledge, familiarity, expertise, intuition, problems you are initially having will eventually and mysteriously vanish. The road may be long to get to this point, but it gets shorter every day. Wrong forks and backtracking are inevitable, but best behind. This machine may look like a pig in a poke, but it is sophisticated equipment. It has third-party controls and software, with alterable variables and presets not fully understood or even aware of. There is G and M code, some modal, as in flip-flop, some one-shot, as on the line they are written on. If you write a program to cut a part, give it a trial run with no tool in the tool holder or no stock in the chuck, and cancel the program before it completes, as it was just for testing. As the program never completed, are there modal settings never instructed to reset? Should I write a little program that I can load and run that does nothing other than reset all the modals to the state I expect them to be? These little hybrid stepper motors I am using have their own peculiarities. They have an inbuilt encoder which will move them all by themselves, resolving any positional issues. For example, I think if I power down the machine, while the power supply still has enough residual voltage to keep the motor's brain functioning, and I quickly turn the motors by hand via the ball screws, maybe to clear a crash. When the machine is powered up again, the motors will turn back by themselves very quickly to resolve any positional issues they have perceived. Sometimes when I run this machine, it runs as expected. Other times, its behavior is erratic. Steps are lost. The tool post is not where the DRO says it should be. Send the machine to park, and it's like the motors are trying to move two different directions at the same time. Motion slowing down to an eventual halt. Power down and up again and hope for the best. I have reread the manufacturer's manuals, checked and rechecked parameters, read manuals from other manufacturers, G and M code from other sources to try and figure out what is going on. The motor can accept signals at up to 200 kilohertz, a minimum of 2.5 microseconds per pulse. With 2,000 pulses per rev, equivalent to 5 millimeters travel, this equates to 30 meters per minute, which is a lot faster than I intend to drive at. The controller can output at up to 400 kilohertz. The motor is also expecting a delay of at least 2.5 microseconds before pulsing, following a change in direction. When configuring this system, I made all cables between the machine and controller greater than 5 meters, and all with connectors. Probably a little overkill, but at the time, I didn't know what the controls would look like. I figured a much bigger box on casters. Having used 5-meter cables, I figured it better to drive the motors from 24 volts rather than the 5 volt TTL signals from the D connector. This allows me to use the enable signals to relax the motors from the panel. I connected a scope to the direction and pulse signals returning from the Z motor after the inline resistor and the common ground to see what the signals returning from the motor look like. The direction signal remains in its last driven state until changed, like a modal state. With the step pulse signal, I was expecting to see a symmetrical square wave, but instead found very short high pulses of constant length regardless of jog speed. The pulses rose like a quarter sine wave and then fell back to 0 volts at an angle of about 100 degrees. The scope recorded the pulse length at circa 3.7 microseconds. The LED in the opto-isolator would be on for a shorter time than this. The motor blurb suggests a series resistor between 3 and 4.7 K for 24 volts. I have 4.7 K at the moment, but I will fit a 3K resistor with a 4.7 volt or 5.1 volt Zener reverse biased in parallel with the plus and minus signal inputs to the motor. Looking up there with the scope, I am hoping for a square pulse, maybe a little longer, using the 3K resistor. There is also a dip switch, number 5, on the motor, which I turned on. This causes the motor to detect the falling edge of the signal rather than the rising edge. So the longer states are the low pulses and the short ones are just to separate them. The motors function regardless as to how this switch is positioned. A bit more road testing to see if the problem is fixed. If not, I will fit a microcontroller to pick up the signals and emit nice square waves to the motors. This would be a relatively easy job, and even if the problem is something else, it would make it a rather simple job to fit handles and encoders, allowing for a manual machine mode. Whether I need to do this, and whether I bother to video it, only time will tell. ...
It was the schooner Hesperus, and she sailed the wintry sea.
Now, wait a minute, fellas. Let's talk this over. There's no use taking any chances.
Chances? That's fine talk coming from a fellow who just got through slapping tigers in the face. Here, get an eyeful of this.
And he talks about taking chances.
Here's the Doc charging the enemy with an unloaded camera. Get the expression on Doc's face, Bill.
He looks more frightened than the tiger.
He is.
Just what you have on your mind, Doc?
I'll tell you what I had on my mind. I was thinking of the inconsistency of civilization. The beast of the jungle, killing just for his existence, is called savage. The man, killing just for sport, is called civilized.
Yeah.
It's a bit contradictory, isn't it?
Now, just a minute. What makes you think it isn't just as much sport for the animal as it is for the man? Now, take that fellow right there, for instance. There never was a time when he couldn't have gotten away. But he didn't want to. He got interested in hunting me. He didn't hate me for stalking him, any more than I hated him for trying to charge me. As a matter of fact, we admired each other.
Perhaps. But would you change places with the tiger?
Well, not now.
Here comes that bad luck lady again. Third time tonight.
Here, let me shuffle him.
Wait a minute. Don't evade the issue.
Yes, come speak up.
I asked you a question.
Yes.
You did?
Oh, I forgot.
No, you didn't. I asked you if there'd be as much sport in the game if you were the tiger instead of the hunter.
Gotcha now, Bob. Well, that's something I'll never have to decide.
No?
Listen here, you fellas. This world's divided into two kinds of people, the hunter and the hunted. Well, luckily, I'm a hunter. Nothing can ever change that.
tiger killed. 10 feet 2 inches of still fury. And now a great trophy. Nowhere else in the world could this hunt have taken place, and at so small a cost. Yes, nowhere but India can the big game hunter get so much for his money. Not only tiger, but throughout the great jungles of India are found many varied types of antelope, including the fleet black buck and the big blue nilgai, a prize for any sportsman. The handsome antlered spotted deer is one of the beauties of the great Indian jungles. Not so handsome, the wild boar offers great sport, but to bag a great Indian bison weighing near a ton is the thrill of a lifetime, and this day was one of our most memorable. Another was the day we bagged 2 spotted leopards. But we came for tiger, and there are many ways to hunt them. To mention a few, from elephant back, as you have seen, from a stone blind, such as these men are building, and past which the beaters will drive the tiger, or from a machan, which is simply a blind built up in a tree. All of these methods require a bullock to be staked out in the jungle the night before. The tiger makes his kill during the night, and next morning the beaters encircle it and drive it from the kill to the hunters. But we were to try a method known as sitting over the kill. 2 machans were built. My companion, who had not yet killed his tiger, was to sit on with his gun bearer. The machan in the next tree was for photographic purposes. Though we were asking for the impossible to expect a tiger in daylight, the shikaris chuckled as they left us, for they knew if a kill were made, it would be 2 different pictures. But knowing the tigers start their prowl just before sundown, we hoped for an early kill as we looked down at the bullock staked below us. No talking, no smoking. The afternoon slowly passed. The sun dropped below the distant mountains, and soon night was upon us. As the night passed, we began to feel that we had not only missed getting pictures, but also missed getting a tiger. And when the sun brought the new day, we were about to give up. We took a last look about. The bullock had filled himself during the cool of the long night, now stood quietly. We heard it, the warning call of a peacock. But was it leopard or tiger? And so the striped killer was himself killed.
That's not a cat myself. That's a tiger. You're looking for the wrong end of the process.
Oh, I want to go home.
With big hungry tigers, table manners have no place. Dear, 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 no, dear, 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 no, dear, dear, oh, dear, no. After they have eaten you, they never say their grace. Dear, 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 no, dear, 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 no, dear, dear, oh, dear, no. Hunting tigers is any fun. Like 3 blind mice see the hunters run. Hunting tigers out in India. Out in India. Yeah, you all know how peevish tigers are. Out in India. Yeah, they bite, they scratch, they make an awful fuss. It's no use stroking them and saying, pass, pass, pass. No, hunting tigers out out in India. Out in India. Yeah.
Oh, Daddy, I'm frightened.
Don't be frightened, my son. Be calm like me.
Oh, you shaking?
I'm not shaking, my son. I'm just doing the shimmy, that's all. Hungry tigers don't use knives and forks or serviettes. Oh, dear, no. Dear, oh, dear, no. Don't care in what part of you they fix their fretwork sets. Dear, no. Dear, oh, dear, no. Tigers don't go out on rainy nights. They've no need to whet their appetites. Hunting tigers out in India. Out in India. You won't know how thievish tigers are. Out in India. Yeah, they bite, they scratch, they make an awful fuss. It's no use stroking them and saying, no hunting tigers out in India. Out in India. They bite, they scratch, they make an awful fuss. It's no use stroking them and saying, push. No hunting tigers out in India. Out in India. Yeah. Plonk, chitty, plonk, chilly, bum, bum.